everyone. We really hope you enjoyed this episode. So, if you're watching on YouTube, if you could please like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel, or if you're listening on Spotify, you can always follow us there. Every like and share and subscribe can help our channel to be seen by many more Stargate fans. So, we really appreciate it. And then we also have all of our socials listed up on the screen right now if you wish to follow us there. Okay, thank you, and I hope you enjoy. Bye. And to all the Stargate fans out there, we would love to hear from you and chat with you on our show. So if you're interested in doing that, please reach out to us via any of our social media platforms or email.
Since we've had a couple of pretty, I think, serious and heavy episodes, I thought it'd be cool to do something kind of fun. I did browse the Stargate subreddit a bit and found some interesting thought experiments or like what ifs or things people thought, and I thought maybe we could both explore some of the ideas of what other people thought, but maybe also add our own. So and before I get into that, anyone watching, if you have something you want to share with us, something fandom related, if you want to just come and talk to us about how much you love Stargate, definitely get in touch with us. Our socials are always in description. You can find us on Instagram. So yeah, definitely get connected with us. We love to build some kind of fan community and hear about why you love Stargate. But yeah, so I checked out a couple of different topics, and I did send them to you. So I don't know how much you looked at prior to this episode. I kind of looked a little, but I tried not to delve too deeply because I wanted things to kind of come to me on the spot a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had kind of sent out 3, and I don't know if maybe you want to start with one of them specifically because there was something that was resonating with you the most.
I mean, I don't know. I hadn't looked into them too much. I kind of skimmed some of them and saw some people's responses. So based off of that, I had with one of the third question in particular, I had liked someone's, or thought it was interesting, I guess, put it that way, of someone's response from that, where they were talking about their most non-Stargate episode, or something that they thought was their most non-Stargate episode, which I don't even think had to do with the question. But that was just something that had stood out to me, that I thought we could also come up with what we thought was our most non-Stargate episode. But I mean, I'm happy to start wherever you want to start with, if you have something in mind.
Okay, then maybe we'll just start with it, because I think this is probably the one where I think that extra question doesn't come from. So one of them was, what future do you see for the Ori people?
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that was an interesting question because it kind of relates a little bit to what the Jaffa went through, kind of, but not really. And so obviously, you have the situation at the end of the Arc of Truth where the priors no longer believe in the Ori, and it says here, the priors no longer believe in the Ori, but that doesn't mean the people will stop believing in them. You also would have a lot of heavily armed and traumatized people coming home from crusades in the Milky Way. How do you think the priors will fit into this societal norm? And how do you think people will handle suddenly having no gods to control their lives?
Ooh,
and
yeah.
I thought that was really interesting because I think it is a very profound situation in which people that had something that gave their life meaning basically suddenly gone. And so it's not even you almost don't even think, well, will they keep believing in it or not? Is almost this question of how would people deal with if they did say find out what came from
right.
How would they deal with even the lack of meaning? And that I find kind of fascinating.
That is,
yeah. So I don't know if you had any thoughts, or if you had really read any of the responses.
With this one, I just kind of skimmed through responses and didn't really read through them too much. I mean, I do find that whole thought fascinating because I never would have thought of to even think of that. So I what I would imagine, at least, is that it would be very difficult for that community of people. I would imagine there would probably, I think there'd probably be extremes where there'd be like parts of the population that were quite depressed and like feeling like they need something to follow, and then parts that feel very free, but almost to the extreme of like causing chaos. And I kind of feel like if episodes were to continued, that maybe like it, and they went into that, that maybe it would have been a case of like someone trying to almost restart it up in a sense, in a different way, some sort of cult like kind of thing that gave
Yeah.
them something to follow. Because I just feel like, you know, if you think of how extreme it was for them to follow the Ori and to
Mhm.
to have that, then to just have that completely gone, I think it would probably be, you know, the equivalent of like in real life if people suddenly had no religions whatsoever, you know,
Yeah.
like and then they'd be like, wait, what, you know? So it's kind of like people like to have something to believe in, you know, and while there's a variety of beliefs, if what your belief is taken away, how do you feel? It's hard to say.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's challenging your entire worldview and kind of how you've
Yeah.
constructed life. I mean, probably depending on how you engaged with it. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's very interesting because with the Jaffa, I mean, it did show how difficult it was for them to kind of establish a new society. And that, you know, of course, some of the struggles of once you're released out from under a power, then you rebuild, but there's still kind of similar issues that kind of arise as you try and kind of create your own order.
Mhm.
But they didn't really, at least I don't remember them really going into much of if there were Jaffa that had sort of, you know, psychological or emotional struggles because of that challenge.
Mm.
And I mean, I know there were ones that, you know, didn't believe or refused to believe. Um, but I don't remember any stories where like a Jaffa was kind of confronted with the fact that everything they kind of fought for their whole life was a lie. Not that I remember, anyways. Maybe there was. Can you remember anything like this?
No, like I mean, I remember like sometimes Teal'c would interact with like when he was trying to get people like to realize that there was another way and that they could be free. I think didn't he run into those situations where they would fight him on that very specific belief of like
Mm-hmm.
acting like they have something to fight for and that they're not just going to, you know, suddenly turn their back on that. But I don't remember anything specifically in terms of after everything kind of happened.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I think the first, like one of the first comments on the Ori thing is actually more questioning the practical situation of I was under the impression that the Ark of Truth broadcast through the prior's staves, and anyone who saw the light of the staff or was exposed to it was set free of their belief. That's why the one remaining Aura lost so much power that a regular ascended being could take her. She had no followers left. So, and they say my head canon is that it wiped out all belief in the Ori, except for maybe a few pockets that would be easily shown the truth. So I think that addresses whether or not they would believe. Um, but I think it still doesn't quite get to that, yeah, that question. Like how with I guess it was the same with Jaffa, is like what would actually happen to the people themselves, like being confronted with that.
Yeah. The next one kind of where they say galaxy-wide civil war, such power
Yeah.
vacuum is going to be catastrophic. A political slash religious earthquake so destructive its effects are going to be felt for at least for a whole century. Priors can keep the things in check for a while, but their days are numbered. The downfall is inevitable.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's a very, very dark interpretation. I mean, I'm sure the things that would like, I could imagine something like someone would take advantage of the fact that there's a void there and then kind of, you know, like
Start something.
yeah,
Yeah.
start something else for people to kind of believe in, usually maybe with a financial reason or power reason. So, which actually, if Stargate kept going, that could have been interesting to see what the next thing was that sort of like swooped it, because that could have been a really easy segue that there's all these people kind of left without a belief system, and then some big baddie, or it could have even been a Goa'uld that swept in and appropriated everything and created this new situation.
Yeah.
So that could have.
There's an interesting comment I just kind of skimmed past a little as you were talking that I noticed. So they said, I think you have to remember that the book and message of Origin isn't bad. Daniel alludes to this several times. It's that its teachings have been perverted and corrupted. The people mostly follow Origin, and through this, the Ori. I'd suspect the priors will probably reflect more on Origin's true meaning to find comfort and disseminate this to the people to comfort them too. It's also unlikely the Ori really got too involved. What? I don't know about that. It's also unlikely the Ori really got too involved in people's lives before anyway. They had the priors to do that, and they are still around. They seem to have survived the death of the Ori when they deployed Merlin's weapon without much issue. They had Adria, but she didn't ascend until some point after that occurred. I'm not sure I fully understand what they're getting at.
But that beginning part is actually really interesting.
Yeah.
About the Book of Origin. And this is almost like a Reformation situation. Where like you have the Reformation of you could probably say something similar, like in the Catholic Church, you had Luther, who was angry with the situation, and he posed the reform. And then I think after that there was also Reformation within the Catholic Church, because of the indulgences primarily. And so I think it would probably be very similar, that what you're describing, what that person wrote would probably be a very similar thing, that they would look into the origin of Origin and what it really, the origin of Origin, and anyways, what it really meant, and maybe kind of reform it in a way, or that's kind of interesting. That's a really interesting approach, actually.
Yeah.
And I think this is something where I think, unfortunately, it would have been really nice to have a few more seasons, because that could have been something. And I know they, like, when they started touching on that about the Book of Origin and the message and how it was changed, like, actually, this is like really opening something up where it could have gone on for many, many more seasons.
Oh yeah. I feel like there's so much involved in a lot of these storylines that it's kind of like, really, they could have it wouldn't have been as entertaining, but they could have started with the Ori from the very beginning and had all 10 seasons leading up to something at the very end. It's kind of like, there's probably a lot there that, unfortunately, like with series, and and even with this one being a long running series, I don't even know what's even common now with series, how long they run. It's, it seems like I don't remember hearing of a series that has run quite as long. Now I feel like they kind of get shorter and shorter as the years go on with how long a series is allowed to run now. I know it's different with streaming services and stuff, but yeah, so my point my rambling being is that, like, of course there's always so much that can go into any of these stories.
Oh yeah.
that you never fully get to finish, because I think the writing's just that good that they kind of leave it in a way that there could be so many more stories to continue.
Oh, totally. Absolutely. No, I love it. But yeah, maybe I'll open up the next one, just because I think there's quite a lot to discuss. But I think these are kind of cool, like fun little thought experiments. And that one in particular, when I found it, I was like, I've never actually thought about that, because some things you think about, but that particular thing I hadn't really thought of. And I thought, well, it's ridiculous I didn't think of that, because it's such a situation in which it would cause such an upheaval of the people, like,
right.
So
yeah.
But the other one, this next one, I think is kind of interesting, because of course Stargate is an older show, and I don't know if you've encountered this, like I have, but most people I know haven't seen it, like that I run into on a daily basis. I usually, have you ever watched Stargate? And a lot of them don't know. And
Mhm.
then you run into people that do know and they are Stargate fans, and you're like, oh yeah, I'm so excited because they're another Stargate
Yeah.
fan. Um, but so this thread is, do you recommend Stargate to people in 2025? And what do you tell them? And so it is basically an entire thread of people talking about how they pitch Stargate to people that have never seen it.
Mhm.
So I thought that was pretty interesting. Like, one is, it was on for 10 years and spawned 2 spin-offs for a reason. Give it a shot. But remember, it started in 1997. Give the technology and graphics a fair shake.
Yeah.
But it's interesting that right underneath it, somebody says, I'm 24 and can be picky about effects and stuff like that. But man, Stargate did so well, in my opinion, in effects for when it came out.
Oh wow. I didn't see that one. I still don't see it, but that's cool that they said that. Let's see. This other person says, I showed my dad a few episodes recently and sold him on it that it has people from most every other sci-fi franchise around the time for a reason. Early roles for many in Battlestar and landing spots for a wide variety of Star Trek folks, X-Files, and even Firefly. Very true. Yeah, it's interesting, like, all the different actors that they got throughout the show that, then are in other sci-fi things. I think that helps too for like explaining something to someone now, like, like if they're a fan of a particular actor that's been around a while, you can mention that they were in it, that kind of thing. But yeah, I've kind of ran into that too, where it's like I just always assume people don't know the show for some reason. Because a lot of times, like, it's somehow like when it gets mentioned, it's like I'm kind of an awkward human at times, as if you can't tell. And like,
Aren't we
so
all, like,
so
in a way?
sometimes it's like it will be something that will randomly like remind me of Stargate or something, and I'll get so excited about it that I'll start babbling nonsense about this show, and then you just get like this blank look of like, what is she talking about? Like what? And so then I'll start going on and on, and I'll like either start mentioning how much I love this show and I named my daughter after one of the characters, blah 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 blah, and I'll keep it going. And then eventually you either get people that are like, oh yeah, like I like that show too, and I'm just like, oh my god, you do? And then like
I know, right? Like, it's like, oh my God, it's so exciting. Or you see something that remind, like, at our main train station, there's this weird circular thing on the top that kind of goes around where like the buses go. And the other day I got off at night and I looked up and I'm like, oh, it looks exactly like a super gate.
oh my gosh.
And then I realized, oh, I love that. It looks like a super gate.
That's
Yeah.
great.
Okay, here's one. There are snake aliens with Egypt aesthetics, military that have moral principles. Oh, and there's a guy who died like 6 times. So,
One that I found interesting is where, because I'm so used to people complaining about Stargate Universe,
mhm.
and I found this interesting. I saw this one where someone says, honestly, SGU is probably the easiest to get into of the shows in 2025. It was way ahead of its time and feels very modern in many aspects. Even though
Huh.
SGA and especially SG1 still looks great, SGU definitely looks more similar to shows people are now used to, which is interesting because while I know you haven't started it yet,
Mhm.
and I know we haven't talked about it yet. I've only, and I've seen, Stargate Universe once, don't remember any of it. And I've just watched 2 episodes so far of Stargate Universe. And one of the first things I did think was that it actually reminded me a lot of, what's it called? The Ark, which is another
Oh yeah,
sci-fi
yeah, yeah.
show
Yeah,
that is more recent and also has the showrunner of Stargate on there.
that's
Um,
interesting.
yeah, and so with the intensity level that you will probably most certainly notice when you start watching Stargate Universe, it's quite different from the rest of it. So I found it interesting that someone said that because it does make sense to me. Yet I know many people feel a certain way about that particular series of Stargate. But yeah.
Yeah, no, that's probably, I could see that, because I think what probably a lot of people might struggle with watching SG1, especially if they're not used to TV that moves a little slower. Like in the very early SG1, everything is paced very differently.
Yeah.
So I think, for someone that just starts, it could be, but it is an interesting question, right? Like, how would you convince somebody to, because when I think Stargate, there's just so much stuff. It's like, oh yeah, there's these snakes that go into people and then they turn them into like God, like,
Yeah. I mean, I think like whenever I've kind of told people about Stargate, I never like go into like the aspects of storyline of what's happening. It's more of like I just say it's like a really cool sci-fi show that has like amazing actors and great writers that like I just like really love the show. Like you don't get bored of it, that I can actually rewatch it. And then like if they hear like they're like, oh, well, like I like sci-fi, like sure, I'll give it a try, that kind of thing. But I
Yeah.
mean, yeah.
I mean, it's funny because I think like this is one thing where I've noticed that some people say you should watch it. It's a really good sci-fi show. And then some people say you should watch it because you can, even people that aren't sci-fi fans can enjoy it. And I think like I would say I'm a fan of very specific things. So like some things that are sci-fi I like, some things that aren't, but it's not like I consume a thing because it's sci-fi.
Exactly, yeah.
And so, but I think in this, it's interesting that I would say probably the highlight, and if I would be the character dynamics and interactions. Like that it's a really good show that happens to have a sci-fi story, but has really, really solid world building and character dynamics and storylines.
Exactly. And well, that actually brings back a very strong memory of when you and your then partner introduced me and my mom to Stargate. And I remember I have this clear memory in my head of you guys handing us the DVDs of it and saying, well, you should try watching this sometime. And I looked at it and I saw like the picture of the team and I'm just like I'm not really, like I specifically remember saying I'm not really into sci-fi. Like I remember saying that like at that time, like I never thought of myself as a sci-fi fan, even though I had watched sci-fi things. There's a lot that has changed with what I watch now that I used to not really be into. Like even that goes into like superhero movies and Marvel and all of that. I actually really like that now, where in the past I didn't. So anyways, I do very specifically remember with that. I can still clearly see in my head of me looking at the DVD, seeing all these random people on the cover and being like, I don't know. Like, I don't know if I'm really going to be into that. And then you guys being like, oh, well, you should try it. It's, because I remember saying that exact thing, saying I'm not really into sci-fi. And I think that's what you guys had said was like something along the lines of, oh, well, it's not really like your typical sci-fi like show. And so yeah, that's funny. That brought back that memory.
Oh, that's funny. Like I should have like I said, hey, how did I tell you? Because I remember telling you at some point watch Stargate, but I can't remember.
Yeah. I think we were hanging out at your apartment and somehow I don't even like I think you guys had been watching it a lot at that point. And I remember the stacks of DVDs like of the different seasons like laying around. And sometimes you would hand like as your DVDs to like try out shows and stuff to watch, because you also did that with Monk. The show
that's right.
Monk. And I remember being so sad when you guys gave away your DVDs, because I never did see like the final seasons of that because you guys gave them away. And I'm like, no.
Oh no. Oh no.
Because I was really into that show too. And like there's like this big cliffhanger, and then you're like, no, we sold them. I'm just like, no.
Oh no. Oh no, that's awful.
And it's funny because now that show was on like Netflix, I think, and I couldn't get into it. Like I couldn't like, but at the time I really loved the show.
That's funny. That's probably another one of those things where it's like so differently constructed back in the day. Yeah, it's so weird. Here's one. Someone, it spins. That's all they put in the comment. And someone says spinning is so much cooler than not spinning.
So true.
I feel like I
If
could
it
tell.
spins, I'm in.
Yeah, exactly. I feel like I could tell that to people to get them to watch Stargate and also to get them to watch skating. It's
Yes.
like maybe that's like the common denominator of everything I watch. It spins.
Oh my gosh. Just wait. Just wait. Once we reach 100 YouTube subscribers, there's something that combines those two that I will be posting.
Oh no, I'm really scared. It'll be a big surprise.
Yes. Probably something I'm only amused by and you're only amused by, and no one else will understand, but that's okay.
Yeah. But like a little bit tangential, but this is interesting. There is a figure skating podcast, and the people that are on the podcast are constantly, I mean, not constantly, but they've mentioned a few times that they're used to the con community,
Oh,
like
really?
convention. So I mean, maybe there is some like fan overlap.
I mean, it kind of makes sense because I kind of feel like figure skating's kind of a unique interest of people. I think
Mhm.
at times, whether they figure skate themselves or into watching it. So yeah, maybe yeah, I'm curious like how many people watching us are also into figure skating?
I mean, if people were, then I think we would get some comments on some particular episodes.
Yes, how many of you like pandas?
But yeah, it's interesting, right? Like it's an interesting, it also tells you like, going into this, how do you get people to watch in 2025 is like,
Yeah.
well, maybe kind of other interests that people are into that kind of,
Yeah, are any of you from Kazakhstan or however you say it?
yeah. Well, and
If you
like,
are, put up the little hand emojis.
I mean, that one time I was actually taught like something came up where I mentioned Stargate and in a figure skating post, and someone said, "Oh, I'm a huge Stargate." I think I mentioned, "Oh, maybe I would someday use some Stargate music." And they said,
Mhm.
"Oh, if you do, like, let me know. I'll throw something." Like, and I'm like, that would be
Oh
so
my
cool. If,
gosh.
like somebody threw
Yes.
like, yeah. But I feel like Stargate should have more, like, just more in general because I feel like the soundtracks aren't so known, like, even though they're really, really good.
Yeah.
It's actually, and I think we have to do a whole episode just on the soundtrack. The soundtrack is amazing.
Yes.
And
Yes.
but somehow difficult to find, like actually the whole soundtrack. I'm not sure even it's ever been released, everything.
Oh my
Um,
gosh. Yeah.
it would be a dream to have that released someday. Um, but then you have all these like things inside the show that like people could collect, and I feel like that particular market also it's starting to maybe be tapped a little bit. Like there's some of those like um, square-headed things that they have with Stargate characters. I don't know what they're called.
Oh, oh my God. I know pop,
Puppets or whatever.
pop. Oh my gosh. I know exactly what you're talking about. The
Yeah, right. They have some now with Stargate characters, and
yes.
but like when you think about what other shows have had attention in terms of that, like they've had so much merchandise and so
Yeah.
much more branding, and I think maybe that's also how I would. I mean, you could get people into it. Like it's
Has
just
there ever been a video game of Stargate?
yes, actually, I think
Has there really? Like it would be so much fun to play a video game where you get to be like one of the members of SG-1 or any of the Stargate, Stargate Atlantis or Stargate Universe. But I would be like so tickled to like play that if it exists somewhere.
yeah. So I think if I remember right, there's a really, really old one based on the movie, but I'm just gonna check it, okay? Oh yeah, and I mean there's a trading card game. Like if anybody is interested, I have some of the trading cards. I love it. I don't know how much they keep selling it, but like they kind of discontinued this as well. And I think these are all things that if they were just around more, but yeah, okay.
Yeah, but like remember when we played the X-Men game?
Mm-hmm.
Like it would be cool
Yep.
to have a game in that style that is Stargate.
Oh, totally. So these are the video games. In Stargate, there was 1994, a handheld game that was based on the movie. That must be the one I'm thinking of. And then there was one released in 1995 where the player controls Jack O'Neill.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. And then there's one that was canceled in
Oh,
2000. I remember hearing about one. Stargate Worlds was also canceled. Another MMO.
Oh, it'd be so cool if they did a VR of Stargate, some sort of Stargate VR game. Because I have a
Mhm.
VR headset and like they have like Jurassic Park and everything. Like it'd be cool to have a Stargate one.
Oh yeah, no, that would be amazing. Can you imagine? And you could like step through the Stargate.
Oh my God,
I would
that'd be so
die.
cool. It has to happen.
It has to happen. Okay, there's one. Stargate Timekeepers is a real-time tactics game. And on January 23, 2024, part one of two was launched on Steam.
Oh, interesting.
That's interesting. So it's like, but it's not as much as you would expect. Like if I were to look this up for any other show, I'd probably have dozens of games, like Star Wars or something. So
I mean, I guess the one thing to think about with Star Wars and well, I don't know actually. I could be wrong on this because with Star Wars, was that mainly movies, right? Initially?
it was
Or
mainly
it
movies.
always has been movies. I don't know with Star Wars. I know Star Trek has like the different series and stuff like Voyager and all of that. Like I really loved Voyager. But
But I think that's basically like SG-1 Atlantis and
yeah.
Universe is like Star Trek, The Next Generation, and then Voyager.
Mm,
Something like that,
yeah,
I think.
true.
So I mean,
Yeah.
but it's interesting how little there actually is. But I think I really usually tell people it's extremely underrated for what it is.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, it's kind of criminal that it's not more, you know, published and promoted.
Yeah.
Because I do like people that I notice that are into Stargate, they do say, I love other like I do like Star Wars or Star Trek, but I love Stargate the most.
Yeah. That's definitely me. Like, I love Stargate the most. Like, I used to not feel comfortable saying that for some reason because I feel like people would always be like, oh, is it Star Wars or Star Trek? Or if you say that you like sci-fi, I mean, maybe that's the thing. Like, maybe that's what it is that saying you like sci-fi is making people think you like a very specific sci-fi like Star Wars. Like I think that's what hits people's minds. So it's kind of like, it's like it's like if they say Star Wars or Star Trek and then you're like, no, Stargate. Like then either they're
Yeah.
left with a very confused look or they don't know what to say because they're ready to battle you on if it's Star Wars or Star Trek.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And I remember seeing something somewhere where like I think it was a meme where it was talking about the different fandoms and
Mhm.
how about the plot holes and that people in other like Star Wars or Star Trek getting very offended about like different plot holes or talking around them, whereas Stargate fans are just like, eh. Like so I think sometimes with
Yeah.
Stargate fans, it's like they have the least amount of that where everything is very precise.
Yeah.
Because sometimes you'll get those people that are fans of it that they get like almost offended if like you don't like they would probably really hate us because we don't remember like little things like
Yeah. Yeah.
so
Yeah.
like
It's like I'm a huge fan, but my ability to remember every little detail is not there.
exactly right, yeah.
And
Oh
I
my
do feel
gosh.
like most Stargate fans that I've ever interacted with, I feel like they're always pretty chill and like they also have the same sense of like weird humor that we have as well. Like
Totally, yeah.
whereas like other places don't always have that. So I've always felt very accepted in the Stargate community.
Yeah, I think that's honestly like one of the best things about being part of
Yeah.
the like fandom is that everybody seems like just really welcoming and it's somehow very comfortable.
Yeah, I mean, even recently, like, I don't understand how to use Discord. And I attempted to communicate with some of the fans in this Stargate like Discord group, and I was like scared that people were gonna get mad at me because I was worried that like I was gonna be posting things in the wrong place and then people being like, you can't put that there, what's wrong with you? And then like but everyone was just really cool, like like people like either just didn't comment or if they did comment they'd be like, oh, maybe do this or put it in this section, and we're cool about it because I found myself get a little bit of anxiety because I don't understand how to use Discord, and I was like, oh my god, where do I post this? There's so
Yeah.
many like hashtag things that say different categories. I'm so confused.
It's really overwhelming. Like it can be really overwhelming Discord. But yeah, it's people are really usually in online communities, people are not always friendly. So
Yeah,
that's saying something.
exactly.
Um, so the third thing, and I think I'll bring this up because then I know there were some questions that you found and wanted to
Yeah.
pose as well. And this is just a fun one. What world place in SG1 is on your, and I think we could also say Atlantis because this question says SG1,
Hmm.
but if we think of one that's in Atlantis, they
Yeah.
really should have followed up on them that place list. So like something that was mentioned, and a person that posts this mentions these ones. Hebridean from Space Race. We didn't get too much tech from an otherwise friendly civilization that might have helped out. Um, Unnamed super civilization in Bane. So I think that's the one where Teal'c gets bit by the bug.
Oh.
Super skyscrapers, well-developed civilization, abandoned, except for the supersized murder wasps. Go back with some armored suits and scour the place. And Orban, again, cool civilization, gave us Naquita generators. Who knows what else?
And
Which
that
also would have
mentions
been.
it's from Learning Curve. Is that the name of the episode?
Mhm. Yep.
Okay.
So I don't know if you remember the one of Learning Curve is the one where the kids got the nanites and then they would
Yeah.
learn and then they would put it somewhere else. So actually, I mean, it would have been cool just to follow up just to see what happened with them because
Yeah.
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 Uh,
Gosh, there's so many. I think with really any of the episodes that they've went into other worlds that like you just see once, I think any of them would be cool to kind of like go back into, or even like correct me if I'm wrong on this, but like with like the Nox, like you only have, is it one or two episodes that really kind of show them and then it's done? Like I feel like they could have learned so much
yeah.
from them, and there could have been interesting stories with that. So that could have been cool. But I mean,
Yeah.
what are your, and I really loved Space Race. I thought that was a
Me
cool
too. Yeah.
episode. Like
Yeah.
there was someone later on in this thing that mentions that they didn't like that episode, but
Yeah.
we can get into that later. But yeah.
But yeah, Grandpa Nick and the giant aliens. I didn't think of that.
What is that? I
That's
don't
the
even know what that is.
that's the one where Daniel Jackson's grandfather, remember they go somewhere and there is some kind of radiation. And then I think Daniel disappears, right? Like he goes out of phase or something. And then they find his grandfather who is institutionalized, I think, at that point
Oh,
because he
okay.
saw
Yeah.
giant aliens and then they go back there and it's the giant aliens so that he actually did experience.
I completely forgot about that episode completely
See?
until you mentioned it now. Wow. Because I read that and I was just like, what's Grandpa Nick? The
Yeah,
giant
Grandpa Nick,
aliens. It just
giant
sounds like a really
aliens.
weird movie.
It's funny because everybody is talking about how he delivers the line, and it's so true because I think even at some point O'Neill, like when he says in the giant aliens, and O'Neill says, yeah, that just has a certain ring to it, doesn't it?
Oh my gosh.
But yeah, I think it's funny. A lot of people mentioned the giant alien. Yeah, someone else says the giant aliens that were out of sync with our space time. Daniel pawned off his grandpa on them, and then nothing. But then someone here says there is a book that follows up on it. It's City of the Gods by Sunny Whitelaw. So someone expanded on that. That is really interesting.
Oh, huh.
Yeah. But yeah, someone mentioned Talana, um, which I agree. Like I think the Tolan is one of the peoples that they meet where I really feel like it's unfortunate that they kind of were killed off so early in the
It,
show.
it just feels way too soon. Every time I think back about them, it just
Mhm.
feels odd. It just feels like that should have never happened. Like I
I
still
know, right?
feel stuck in a confusion as to why that was like what happened. It just feels like that shouldn't have happened. It feels like there should have been more episodes with them.
I 100% agree. And I think like like, I think that there could have been so much depth, especially when they got into the later seasons.
Yeah.
Things got more complicated and interrelations got more complicated. I think having the Tolan around would have been amazing.
Yeah. And I think one of the things that I got the quote for, which made me think of another question, was from this question.
Okay.
Because you know how like the person that initially mentioned the question mentioned space race and everything.
Mhm.
And so this other person commented saying space race is one of the most non-Stargate episodes in the series. It is very Trekky, which simply does not fit the universe and storytelling style of Stargate. I am glad that they never followed up with that world. And that got me thinking, like, first of all, I don't agree with that at all.
Yeah, me neither.
I completely disagree. I really, really liked that episode. And I also thought it kind of showed like Carter in a very badass way that you don't normally get to see her. And kind of just a fun way. And I loved the aliens of that world. And
Me too.
it
Me
was
too.
and the race. It was just cool. I really liked that episode. So I disagree with that, but it got me thinking, like, are there any Stargate episodes that you've seen so far up to this point? You haven't yet finished Stargate Atlantis yet. You still have a few episodes to go. For me, I've gotten up to the first few episodes of Stargate Universe. Is there anything during what you've seen that you would think seems very like it felt out of place in terms of it feeling like a Stargate episode?
Mm-hmm. So that's such a good
Like,
question.
I know what I would answer, but it actually is an episode you have not seen. So I could answer the one that I think it is, but I won't really go into detail as to fully why I feel that way.
Is it from Universe?
No, it's from Atlantis.
Okay. Because now I think I'm only 2 episodes from the end there.
Okay. Because you haven't seen Vegas, right?
No. I mean, okay, I've seen it some years ago. So if you said it's not a Stargate, I might understand why.
Yeah, with that one, that definitely I'm not like I feel like it purposely was supposed to fit a different style on purpose. Like it was done intentionally.
Mm-hmm.
But the whole episode is really following a very specific type of even like cinematography and everything. I think they're probably trying to replicate something that I'm not wise as to what they're trying to not like replicate as in replicators, but like you know, like film wise, I think they're trying to fit a certain style of movie or show.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So maybe someone that's more wise to that kind of filming maybe knows what they're trying to copy there, if that makes sense, because the visuals and the music and everything was very, very different. And rightfully so. There's a good reason for it. And not that I didn't like that episode, I did. It's not one of my favorite episodes. Like it was an okay episode, but it definitely did feel very different to me. So that one I definitely would say would fit that for me. If I try and think of anything earlier before that, I guess sometimes things that feel so-called less Stargate, I guess, would be if they kind of change up. It's not even so much the storylines for me as it is if they change up like the music and stuff, it feels
Mm-hmm.
different. So maybe like the one that has like the zombies and it was more like a zombie thing.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, it was a little bit like, it's so funny though, because when I think about it, like when you mentioned cinematography, then I thought, okay, well, Heroes has this sort of different
Mm,
cinematography style because of
right.
the documentary. But at the same time, even though that from like a cinema perspective doesn't quite like fit what you would expect with Stargate, the character and the behavior and everything is so quintessentially Stargate that it kind of
Mhm.
balances it out.
And also like the one where it's like what was that episode with Teal'c where he's actually like I think it was the episode where really you find out he's like putting the symbiote back and
Mhm.
forth between himself and is it Braytek, I think.
I think it's called The Changeling. And I think
Yeah.
that concept, or it might even been the episode itself was written by Christopher Judge.
Yeah.
But yeah, it had like a different, but I mean, that's also kind of similar to like say Forever and a Day, where Shari is kind of sent
Yeah.
the message through So I mean, yeah, that one, it's also very different. Like it starts
Yeah.
very different, but yeah, it still has that like.
So in that sense, you can argue that they all are very like Stargate, because some of the ones I mentioned are all ones that kind of take that same kind of concept
Mhm.
and play around with that same kind of concept a little, including the Vegas one. So um, you could argue that it is very Stargate then, because there's other ones that have a similarity to it. But
Mhm.
um,
But
yeah.
yeah, I think maybe there's some, like I find some of the episodes, like when you get into much like later Atlantis, like seasons 4 and 5, there are a lot of episodes that really remain restricted to a small amount of cast and a small location. And not
Mm,
in the sense of like, I mean, I know, of course, like in season 1 of Stargate, they had some episodes like where I know, like, they intentionally, the one where Carter and O'Neill were stranded was sort of intentionally pared down for money saving, for example, for budget. But at the same time, I still never felt like the ensemble cast wasn't present.
mhm.
But I do notice that there's some episodes in later Atlantis where there's less of a presence of the ensemble cast, and then it feels a little bit less like like a Stargate episode. And not that I don't like the
Yeah.
episodes, but I think, like, I mean, I'm thinking, for example, even just Brainstorm, um, the one where like Rodney travels to some
Mhm.
conference. You could say it's very similar to, like, say when Mitchell went to his high school graduation.
Ah,
But
yeah.
in that episode, it was so tied. Like everybody else from SG1 was still tied into the episode and what was going on. It's just there were kind
Yeah.
of simultaneous storylines, whereas this was more isolated.
Yeah.
So I think maybe episodes like that, even if they're really good episodes, it still kind of doesn't quite have that same vibe.
Yeah, where it's like they kind of make it really heavily based on one character,
Mm-hmm.
which is how the Vegas one is, which is how Brainstorm is. Like you mentioned, it's heavily based on McKay and Keller, right?
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, yeah, that does make sense. I think, but yeah, that'd be interesting to know, like if, like how this person on this Reddit chat mentioned Space Race, like if others felt that that one was not very Stargate like, because to
Yeah.
me I didn't get that vibe at all. But I mean, I guess you could say because it was a racing kind of thing, but I don't know. I still felt it felt very Stargate. I do remember back when we were talking about that episode, I remember saying it was a little weird to me how Carter was so different.
Mm-hmm.
Because prior to that, she was seen in a very specific way. And then they had her kind of break out of that for this one episode.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
then it never came back again fully. Like,
Well,
maybe a little bit. I don't know, but
I think sometimes, like, there's this episode where like she's walking with Vala and they have all their shopping and they're like dressed in kind of like
right.
civilian
Yeah.
clothes, and so you can kind of see a little bit behind the scenes. Like I actually, like, I love that. And uh,
Yeah.
so I think sometimes you get little glimpses of, like,
Their
fun part, or yeah.
yeah, their personal lives and less of like their work
Mhm.
persona.
Yeah.
Um yeah.
But yeah, it's interesting because I wonder if maybe part of it is that it didn't really start with necessarily, I mean, there was a problem in the end. Like obviously there was something wrong with the government. So in that sense, it's like very, to me, it's actually very, very almost typically Stargate, where you go somewhere and then you find something out that the government's doing something secretly against everybody. And I wonder if maybe what they perceived as to be more Star Trek is that the particular race was a little bit more corporate driven,
Mm,
like they had this big corporation and everything, rather than some of the other advanced civilizations that they've had, which are tend to be more like almost hyper enlightened. You know what I mean? Like
yeah. Yeah.
maybe that's why. I don't know. I have no idea, but
Yeah. Maybe. Yeah. I
yeah.
mean, in all fairness, I haven't watched a whole ton of Star Trek. Like um I actually realized I do really like Star Trek. But I don't feel like I know too much about the vibe of Star Trek, if that makes sense. Like, if questioned
Yeah, me
about it, I
neither.
probably wouldn't really be able to fully tell you the differences. Like, I had watched Voyager, which I really liked. I never watched the oldest one. And then I've watched some of the movies that I've liked, but that's about it.
Yeah, me neither. I mean, I know I watched many of the movies when I was much younger, but in terms of vibe, yeah, I wouldn't be able to say. So maybe
Yeah.
someone can tell us what they think, if they think the episode was like very Star
Yeah.
Trek.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And then I don't know if it was through that chat that I saw this bonus type question that I thought was, or maybe no, maybe this was from a different thing that I was looking at. I think that mentioned this question. It wasn't from that chat, but I thought it could be an interesting like question for us to think about, which is which Stargate character is most likely to ascend accidentally?
Oh my gosh. What would you say?
Like who I thought up, and this might seem really weird, but I thought up Felger.
Oh my gosh. Actually,
Because
you're right.
I'm just
Because
like, he's kind of like I just love Felger so much. I think he's one of my faves. Like he's just so dorky, it just like makes my heart happy. And
I love
like
Algeria.
he's so kind too. Like and like everything just always in a very dorky way goes wrong. And so I feel like his intentions are always pure
Yes, that's
and
true.
he never tends to do anything to just benefit himself. It's like silly things happen. So I feel like because weird things happen, I feel like something could happen where he accidentally ascends.
I could see it. I could see it. I could see it. It's funny because the first thing that popped into my mind was Ronan.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I don't know why, but I feel like it's like one of those things where you wouldn't realize it, but he's like super enlightened, and then
Yeah.
I don't know, like, but yeah, Felger's a really good one, but I don't know why Ronan popped into my head immediately. We're probably like both way off. It's probably like Vala or something.
I mean, Ronan, that could happen. Like, it could be something where, like, maybe he's like trying to learn from Teal'c how to meditate or something,
Yeah,
and
and then it just
somehow, like, yeah,
he is already so enlightened that he enlightens himself more and just whooshes out into the what is like and where do ascended beings live? I mean, that's good. Like they
I
live
don't
in the
know,
ether, right?
in the ether, yeah. Oh my gosh. But yeah, I mean, is that all of the ones I think we were?
I think that's all of the ones I brought up, and I
Yeah,
think these were some really cool questions. I'd be really curious to hear what other people's thoughts are,
yeah,
and I'll put these links into the description so you can kind of read through yourself. And also, if there's anything interesting you read, that you can feel free to post in the comments, and we'd be interested to also interact about what your thoughts are on these interesting
yeah,
thought musings.
yeah. And name what character you think would accidentally ascend.
Yes, yeah, that I would be interested to know that.
Yes. Stories are welcome. So if you have a whole paragraph of like how you think this is going to happen, leave it in the comments.